Hello my friends and welcome to the channel. I was fortunate enough to get invited to one of the first content creator exclusive tests for Gray Zone Warfare. And in this video, I just wanted to talk about the game, my thoughts and first impressions after playing it for a while. For those who might not know, Gray Zone Warfare is another game in the tactical milsim survival genre that has been steadily growing over the last 5 years or so, following in the footsteps of games like Tarkov, DayZ, and Rust. The general idea of Gray Zone is pretty familiar to anyone who has played games like Tarkov. You're spawned into a big map that's scattered with locations that hold valuable supplies that you want, and you're going to have to fight through AI and player-controlled enemies to get that loot, and then extract it back to your base to build up an arsenal of backup gear to replace the stuff that you'll eventually lose when you inevitably die. The game does feel similar to Tarkov in a lot of ways, with a nearly identical inventory system and weapon modding system. There's even a secure container where you can put stuff to not lose it after death. Unlike Tarkov, however, which splits the world up into individual locations that you have to load into and extract out of, Gray Zone is more like DayZ or Rust, with a single large persistent map that you're free to explore how you see fit. This means that the world is constantly active, so even when you're AFK at base eating a sandwich, people on your server are still out there grabbing the loot and having gunfights. The main thing that I think sets Gray Zone Warfare apart from other games like it, though, is that the game is actually trying to lean more into the idea of player factions actually being a team of people that work together. In Tarkov, you choose a faction at the start of the game, either Bear or USEC, but really it's just a cosmetic choice. It doesn't really matter what faction you pick, you're still going to shoot everything that you see on sight, pretty much without question. In Gray Zone, players also pick a faction when creating a character, and each faction has a base of operations located on opposite sides of the map. Everyone in your faction respawns at the same base when you die, and at least in the early stages of the game, your whole faction is kind of operating in the same general area doing some of the early missions for the vendors. At least in my experience, this led to a surprising amount of interaction and cooperation with other random players in my faction. There's proximity voice, so you can talk with other players, and you can see your faction on the map. And in just the couple hours that I played before making this video, I grouped up with 5 or 6 different random solo players and squads while out doing questing. Just take a look at this little encounter, where I was kind of lost while searching for a mission objective, and then I hooked up with 2 random guys who offered to show me where I needed to go, escort me there, and help me finish the mission.
Hey, what you trying to accomplish?
Trying to find the second hideout.
Yeah, right here, brother. I just found it. I thought
So this is... I'm pretty sure this is like the one I found.
Oh, you found this one. Did you find the one in the northwest corner?
No. That's like what I've been looking for, but my quest marker, sir, my quest says that I found the northwest one already. And I'm like, bullshit.
Do you have the item in your...
No, I turned one of them in.
Okay.
It is near the marketplace, my friend.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It is to the west of the marketplace.
Alright, cool. Alright, I'm gonna go find this thing.
Yes,
Do
sir.
you want some assistance, my dude?
I mean, I wouldn't say no.
We follow his 6, yeah. By the way, marketplace is insanely hot, so just be careful.
Enemy in front of us on the road. Got him. There's more though.
Another one down.
Another one on the other side of the building. Oh my god, look at all those AI. Ooh.
It's a lot of motherfuckers.
I'm healing up a bleed. And there is like a partial crouch, but it's kind of awkward.
That's the building, I believe, right there in front of us, northwest.
Okay.
You gotta get to the second floor of that. Intel should be right here. Think it was?
Indeed it is. Man, I appreciate it. I would have been looking for that all fucking day.
I saw, like, I was looking at the same area as you for the other one. I thought you might
Yeah.
be trying to do that task.
Once this kind of stuff started happening, it's kind of where the game started clicking for me. Because I'll admit, when I first started playing, I was kind of iffy on the whole thing. I couldn't really see how this offered a new experience for people who have played other games like it. But after I realized that the game is trying to push more of a faction versus faction battle as opposed to an individual versus individual battle, I definitely started seeing the appeal. You have your squad, but then you also have your faction, which is made up of multiple squads. Those squads can all split off and go do their own thing, but you could also coordinate together to launch bigger raids into enemy territory, since each faction kind of controls a section of the map from their base camp. In theory, this could potentially lead to some really cool moments. You could talk to a few other squads at base and say, hey boys, how about we hop in the chopper, head across the map, and find a nice tree line where we can set up shop and ambush the enemy faction while they're heading out to their missions. Or alternatively, you could be flying back to base after running some quests and end up dropping into a crazy defensive gunfight where your faction is trying to organize squads to go out and clear the area around your base because the enemy factions are closing in for a raid. I think success for this concept is kind of going to depend on the community, which is a risk. In games like this, people absolutely tend to get bored of the roleplay aspect and resort to just killing everyone, griefing the enemy as much as possible, and turning it into a cutthroat, lawless wasteland. If one faction on a server has better players or simply more coordination, I can see problems with them just being able to bully the other faction so hard that they can't even leave their base. But with some tasteful intervention from the devs to keep things moving, I feel like that might be something that can be dealt with when it comes up. So now that we've covered what I like about the gameplay loop and what I think is promising about the game, what about stuff I don't like? Well, right off the bat, performance and AI behavior so far do leave something to be desired. I don't have a beast of a computer, but even with a 3080 and a 12700 CPU, I was struggling to push above 60 frames some of the time, well honestly most of the time, which is pretty harsh in a game where you can be taken out in a split second. When it comes to the AI, it really seemed to range from being pretty immersive and fun to play against, all the way to feeling like the old school Tarkov scavs that would clip you with a single shotgun blast from 100 meters through 10 bushes and send you back to the menu with a sour look on your face. To be fair, this is like the first playable version of the game, and with that in mind, I don't think it dragged the experience down too much. As long as you're fighting from a good piece of cover, you seem to have a pretty solid advantage against the AI, but getting caught in the open was definitely a death sentence. I really hope they go the Tarkov route as well of having many different types of AI, ranging from the low-level looters and thugs up to paramilitary gangs, and even something like warlords similar to the scav bosses in Tarkov. On this topic though, I think something that is going to turn off some players from Grayzone is that it seems like PvP is likely going to be more of a secondary thing, and not the main driver of the gameplay. The factions start a long way from each other, and every time you die, you have to make that whole journey over again. So you can spend half an hour walking through the jungle to go assault the enemy base, but once you're found and taken out, you get sent back to base and would have to trek across the map again if you want to try again. As the factions move farther inland into the map and get more fast travel zones by unlocking LZs for the chopper, I think PvP will pop up more and more often, but I can definitely see some people just getting turned off by the idea that they can play for hours and potentially never engage in PvP. Personally, I don't mind that at all, but I know there's a large part of the player base for games like this that only play these for the PvP. And I don't know if this experience is really up their alley, but I could be totally wrong about that and only time will tell. Other things that could use work, well, some of the weapons just felt kind of bad to use, especially the pistols, which felt like they had the recoil of a shoulder-fired artillery gun. However, I chalk that up to early access, and I'm certain weapon handling is being constantly worked on. The other thing that really bugged me sometimes was the audio. The ambient sounds were just way too loud most of the time. The sound effects themselves are pretty good, but the mixing needs work. I don't think that the frogs should be so loud that it gives me a headache every time I'm walking through the swamp. Also, the ringing sound when you take a headshot to the helmet and don't die almost single-handedly made me want to quit playing this demo. And whoever approved that sound effect at that volume is kind of a fucking psychopath. But that basically covers it for my initial thoughts about Gray Zone Warfare. Overall, I think you can definitely feel the early access nature of the game, but I do think it shows promise as long as it can keep a community of players who appreciate a more social and team-based take on a milsim survival game. What do you think? After seeing it in action and watching some of us play on stream, are you still hyped for Gray Zone? What are some of the things that you think look good about the game, or stuff that you've seen that just kind of turned you off? Thanks for checking out the video. I've got a link to my Twitch channel in the description if you want to come check out some of my gameplay live. And until next time, stay safe out there, everyone.